Section 1. A perfect life. A perfect murder. What if the universe itself decided to solve a murder? It sounds like something from a movie, a story too strange to be true, but sometimes, reality is far more bizarre than fiction. Imagine a case that has gone completely cold. Detectives have hit a wall. A family is left with nothing but grief and unanswered questions. The trail has vanished. And then, something happens. Not a brilliant deduction, not a secret informant. No, something far stranger. A glitch, a mistake, a tiny random error in the digital world that rips the case wide open. This is that story. A story where a ghost in the machine pointed directly to a killer, and justice was found in the most unlikely of places. We are going to take you deep into a mystery that baffled investigators for years. Prepare yourself. We will use a combination of real footage from the case and stock media. It all begins in the quiet, picturesque town of Maple Creek, on a day that started like any other. The date was October 12, 2018. The leaves were turning brilliant shades of red and gold, but by nightfall, that picturesque scene would be shattered by an act of unspeakable violence. Our victim, a beloved local teacher named Sarah Jenkins, was found dead in her home. Her life, once so full of promise and warmth, was extinguished in a moment of brutality. Sarah was the kind of person everyone loved. She was a light in her community, a dedicated teacher, a loving sister, a loyal friend. Her sudden and violent death sent a shockwave of fear and sorrow through Maple Creek. Who would want to harm such a kind soul? The question hung heavy in the crisp autumn air. The police launched a massive investigation, promising swift justice. They were determined to find the person responsible for tearing this peaceful community apart. They canvassed the neighborhood. They interviewed dozens of people. They collected every scrap of potential evidence, but the killer was like a phantom, leaving behind almost nothing. The mystery of Sarah Jenkins's murder became a local obsession. It was the topic of hushed conversations in coffee shops, and a constant headline in the local news. Behind the scenes, the pressure on the police department was immense. Sarah's family was desperate for answers. Jehovah, Tuga, a palpable presence in every press conference. The detectives worked tirelessly, chasing down every lead, no matter how small. They re-examined the crime scene. They re-interviewed witnesses. They ran forensic tests again and again. But every path led to a dead end. The case was a perfect puzzle with a missing piece, and the investigation slowly, painfully, ground to a halt. Section 2. The Vanishing Trail. As weeks turned into months, the initial flurry of activity surrounding the case began to fade. The yellow police tape came down, the news vans drove away. For the residents of Maple Creek, life slowly started to return to a semblance of normalcy. But for the detectives on the case, and for Sarah's grieving family, there was no moving on. The investigation had officially stalled. The killer had been meticulous, leaving no fingerprints, no DNA, no weapon. It was as if they had simply vanished into thin air after committing the perfect crime. Hope, 여성 수사관의 얼굴에 한때 밝게 타올랐던 불꽃이 희미해지기 시작했습니다. It was a frustrating and heartbreaking reality. The file on Sarah Jenkins grew thicker, filled with reports, interviews, and forensic analyses that all pointed to nowhere. It was a testament to countless hours of dedicated police work, but it was also a monument to Tom and to failure. The detectives had explored every possibility. Was it a robbery gone wrong? Nothing of value was missing. Was it a crime of passion? Sarah had no known enemies and her personal life seemed drama-free. They looked into every person she had ever known, from ex-boyfriends to disgruntled students, but each lead dissolved under scrutiny. The case was turning cold, a chilling prospect for everyone involved. The trail wasn't just cold, it had completely disappeared. This is where our story truly begins, not with a clue, but with the absence of one. The complete and total darkness of a dead-end investigation. This is the point where most true crime stories end, relegated to Kai Hop of unsolved mysteries. But this case was different. Fate, or perhaps something stranger, had a different plan. The investigators didn't know it yet. The family, lost in their grief, couldn't have imagined it. But a single, random event was about to occur. An event so improbable, so coincidental, that it would change everything. It was a digital ghost, an echo in the system, waiting to be heard. The police had done everything by the book. They had followed protocol. But this case wasn't going to be solved by the book. It was going to be solved by a fluke, an accident, a one-in-a-billion glitch that would undo all the killer's careful planning in an instant. What you're about to see is how a tiny, almost imperceptible crack in the digital world, Leon Suo, fanning a chain reaction that would lead detectives straight to the killer's door. The moment that luck finally broke, the case was just around the corner. Section 1. The Silence of Sycamore Lane. The evening of October 12, 2018, began like any other on Sycamore Lane. It was a Friday. The air was crisp with the promise of a cool autumn weekend. Streetlights cast a warm orange glow over the perfectly manicured lawns and cozy, two-story homes. This was the heart of Maple Creek, a place where people felt safe, where neighbors knew each other by name. Sarah Jenkins lived at number 24, a charming blue house with a white picket fence and a porch swing. She had returned home from the local high school where she taught English just after 4 p.m. She had plans for a quiet evening, a movie, a cup of tea, and grading papers. No one could have known that this peaceful routine was about to be shattered. The first hint that something was wrong came from Sarah's sister, Jessica. The two were incredibly close and spoke on the phone every single night. When Sarah didn't answer her phone at 9 p.m., Jessica wasn't immediately worried. Perhaps Sarah had fallen asleep early, but when subsequent calls and texts went unanswered, a knot of anxiety began to form in Jessica's stomach. This was not like Sarah at all. She was reliable. She was always there. By 10:30 p.m., a feeling of dread had taken over. Jessica drove the 10 minutes to her sister's house, her heart pounding with every red light and stop sign. The house was dark. A single light was on in the living room, but the rest was shrouded in an unsettling silence. Jessica used her spare key to open the front door. "Sarah?" she called out, her voice trembling in the stillness. The only reply was the faint sound of the television, still playing in the living room. As she stepped inside, the scene that greeted her was one of unimaginable horror. The living room, usually so tidy and welcoming, was in disarray. A lamp was knocked over, a book was splayed open on the floor, and there beside the coffee table lay Sarah. She was gone. Paramedics and police were called, their sirens tearing through the quiet night, but it was far too late. The peaceful silence of Sycamore Lane had been broken by an act of brutal, inexplicable violence. The lead detective assigned to the case was a veteran named David Rios. He was a man known for his calm demeanor and his sharp, observant eyes. He had seen his share of darkness in his 25 years on the force, but the crime scene at Sarah Jenkins's home felt different. It was personal. It was an attack on the very fabric of their safe community. Detective Rios and his team began the painstaking process of securing the scene. They knew that in these first few moments, the smallest detail could be the key to finding the person who had stolen Sarah's life. But as they looked around, a sinking feeling began to set in. The scene was disturbingly clean. Section 2. A scene without a story. The crime scene was a contradiction. It showed signs of a brief, violent struggle, yet it offered almost no clues about the perpetrator. The official cause of death was blunt force trauma, but the weapon was missing. Forensics swept the house, dusting for fingerprints, collecting fibers, swabbing every surface for DNA. The only DNA matched Sarah or her immediate family. Like her sister Jessica, who had a valid reason to be there. No foreign fingerprints on the door handles, no unidentified hairs on the carpet, no skin cells under Sarah's fingernails. It was as if the killer had been a ghost. Detective Rios walked the house again and again. The scene offered no attacker, no signs of forced entry. Either Sarah knew her killer and let them in, or the killer entered without leaving a trace. Detectives built a timeline. Last seen at 4:15 p.m., retrieving her mail. Sister found her a little after 10:30 p.m. A 6-hour window. A beloved teacher's life ended at home, unseen. The initial theory, robbery gone wrong, the simplest explanation. But cataloging belongings changed everything. Her purse sat on the kitchen counter, untouched. Cash left inside. Credit cards left inside. Her laptop in place. Her tablet in place. Her jewelry in place. Nothing of significant value taken. This wasn't a robbery. This was something else. This was personal. No clear motive, deeply troubling. The suspect circle was terrifyingly wide. Could be a close friend, could be a complete stranger, could be someone with a hidden grudge. the investigation hit a wall. Detectives focused on Sarah's personal life, interviewed family, interviewed friends, interviewed colleagues, secret boyfriend, recent argument, conflict at work. Everyone painted the same picture. Sarah was universally liked. The breakup was amicable. X had a solid alibi, hundreds of miles away on a business trip. Leads evaporated. A puzzle with no edge pieces. A story with no beginning. The perfect crime looked truly perfect. Section 3. The first 48 hours. In any homicide investigation, the first 48 hours are critical. This is the window where evidence is freshest, memories are clearest, and the chances of catching the killer are highest. Detective Rios and his team knew this. They worked around the clock, fueled by coffee and a burning need for justice. They pulled security footage from every camera within a 5-block radius of Sarah's home. They hoped to catch a glimpse of a suspicious vehicle, a person fleeing the scene during that crucial 6-hour time frame. They sat for hours in darkened rooms, their eyes glued to grainy footage from doorbell cameras and gas station security systems. The task was monumental. They had to sift through hundreds of hours of video, looking for anything out of the ordinary, a car circling the block, a person walking at an unusual time. But Sycamore Lane and the surrounding streets were quiet. The footage showed residents walking their dogs, kids riding bikes, delivery trucks making their rounds. There was nothing. No suspicious figures lurking in the shadows, no getaway car speeding away into the night. It seemed the killer had chosen their time and place with chilling precision, avoiding every possible digital witness. The first 48 hours were ticking away, and the police had nothing to show for it. The human element of the investigation was just as intense. Teams of officers went door to door, re-interviewing every resident on Sycamore Lane and the adjacent streets. They asked the same questions over and over. Did you see anything unusual on Friday? Did you hear any strange noises, like a shout, a scream? Most people had seen and heard nothing. A few offered vague tips. One neighbor thought they heard a car door slam around 7 p.m., but they couldn't be sure. Another saw a dark-colored sedan they didn't recognize parked down the street earlier in the day, but they couldn't provide a license plate or a make. Each tip was meticulously logged and followed up on, but none led anywhere concrete. By the end of that first weekend, a sense of frustration was beginning to creep into the investigation. The pressure was mounting. The media was camped outside the police station, demanding updates. Sarah's family was calling every few hours, desperate for any news, any sliver of hope. Detective Rios had to face them and tell them that they had no suspects, no solid leads, no answers. It was the hardest part of his job. The first 48 hours had passed. The golden window had closed. The trail, which was never warm to begin with, was now growing ice cold. The killer had a head start. They were disappearing further into the darkness with every passing minute.